what is the cost of not doing it? What is the it? Could be a transition. It could be your health and fitness. It could be whatever, going to school. It doesn't matter. But what's the cost of not doing the thing that you want to do? Because inactivity or choosing not to do something is still making a choice. As a famous quote from the band Rush, I can't remember exactly what it is, but the idea is that if you choose not to make a choice, you still have made a choice. And very similarly, if you choose not to act, you've made a choice. The choice is inaction, in effect. And so I was talking to a client a couple of days ago, and they were just having some issues, and they were fearful of what was going to happen, and the transition is going to be hard, and they didn't know how things were going to go, and all of these what ifs. And I said it's interesting about transition, because when you have a transition in front of you, or you have a fitness journey in front of you, or one that you really want to make big changes to in your life, it sits in front of you, right? But at some point, if you start action and actually doing it, it starts becoming somewhat in front of you and somewhat behind you. And 5.5 years ago, almost exactly for me now, I started my transition, and it was shit. It wasn't fun. It was in a pandemic, and it was recovering from all of this stuff, blowing up my life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And, but now it's behind me. I can look back on it and be like, wow, that was a really crazy time in my life. But all of that pain, all of that what ifs are gone, because I started walking towards myself, and I am, if anything, a person of action. I can't sit and think about the what ifs too much, because they'll actually drive me crazy. So talking to this client, and I was kind of saying, you've already waited 5, 10, 15, 20 years for this thing. Now imagine you had done this 20 years ago. Now you would be 15 years into living your life, and you don't have to think about it anymore. Instead, when it's in front of you, all you've got is time to think about the thing that's in front of you, the fears that lie in front of you, the anxiety that is blocking you from action. So what's the cost of not doing something? Maybe Madison, you can jump in and talk about, like, what's the cost of not starting a fitness journey or taking care of your body? Like, initially, we know it doesn't cost a lot, but what is the cost eventually?
Yeah. There was a really interesting thing that was circulating from one of the doctors that I follow, and it was like just a few statements of how, your back issues didn't start in your 30s, they started in your 20s. Your illness in your 40s didn't start in your 40s, it started in your 30s. Your early onset Alzheimer's didn't start in your 50s, it started in your 40s and your 30s. So the cost, although it seems so far away, people who smoke, right? Like,
Definitely.
you are sucking on a potential cancer stick. How many people do you know smoke their whole lives and it doesn't kill them, right? But it seems so far removed that we are creatures of the present and we don't think of the long term. So the cost is your life, right? It's not just your like actual life as you know it, but the things that you're not going to have. So Victoria always does this thing where she's like, play the tape to the end.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think you should talk about that because it's a really good example.
Play the tape to the end. It's for people who know what a tape is, which means you have to be old. But play the tape to the end is kind of like a way of looking at something is, if I choose not to do something and I live this life that I currently have, what is it going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years? How will I feel if I choose not to live an authentic life? What does it look like if I keep this mask on, keep this life that I don't actually like just because it keeps me safe? Because my neighbor doesn't, my neighbor's opinion of me isn't bad. Let me tell you something. Your neighbor probably thinks whatever the hell they're going to think, and who gives a shit what they think, right? Um, and people bend to the opinions of other people all the time, and they choose not to choose themselves all the time. So play the tape to the end is kind of like this thing that you can practice with yourself. What happens if I do this? Of course, we don't have all the information. We don't know what's going to happen if we start doing something. Because, just like chaos theory, you do one thing and it has a million permutations, right? And we can't predict what all of those things are going to be. And regardless of how your life ends up playing out, I feel sometimes the cost of inaction is the cost initially is very minimal, because on a day-to-day basis, not doing something is easier, right? Not going to the gym,
Comfort.
not transitioning, not doing the thing that you actually need to do to get to the place where you want to go is really easy at the beginning. Quitting smoking, not quitting is really easy. You just continue smoking. But the cost in the long run isn't so easy and isn't so nice and doesn't have a rewind button. You can't go backwards once you get lung cancer. You can't go backwards once you've lived your whole life, and that time you don't get back. And playing the tape to the end is kind of like a chance for your brain to do something for you by predicting, or at least making obviously some assumptions, but at least kind of figuring out what your life is going to look like in 20 years if you choose not to do something. And so comfort is the worst thing in so many ways, right? Because it is comfort in your life that causes inaction, and comfort that causes you to overeat. It's comfort that causes you to be complacent. It's comfort that causes you to not evolve and grow, because really growth as a person comes specifically from discomfort.
So there's this concept of like choosing your hard, right? And so if you're sitting in comfort, you're technically, although you're comfortable and it's easy now, you're choosing your hard to be later, because your hard is going to be injury, sickness, a life unlived, right? You're going to wake up 20 years from now and have the I wish I dids. Or
Yeah.
you can choose your hard now of starting your transition, starting your fitness journey, getting in shape, living your best life. And you might be a little uncomfortable now, but for the rest of your life, you get to be 10 times better, or
Exactly.
whatever. You can't put a number on it. You can't put a price on it.
You can't put a price
You
on it.
can't put anything on that, because it is, you only get one chance to do this, right? And
Yeah.
do you want to get to the end and you didn't live, right?
And so, like, I love that idea of like of you get to pick, but you only get one choice and you only get one chance. So do you do it now or do you do it later? Like, think about like things like addictions. Think about things like your physical health. Think about something like your transition or coming out or whatever. It's I always every time we talk to our clients, I talk about the three things that are required to achieve a goal. The first thing is you must know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, you can't possibly know where you want to go. Number two is you have to have a goal. You have to have something that you want to achieve. And the third thing is you have to have a plan on how to achieve that goal. And inaction is where most people get stuck. They get stuck in A, they might not even know who they are, or they do know who they are, but they're too afraid to do anything about it. And then they get stuck on number one because they won't even give themselves a goal because that goal feels too far fetched or it feels impossible or it may give them a hope, but it also gives them a feeling of failure. And sometimes people get stuck on number two. They know who they are and they know what they want to achieve. And then they do a bunch of random things and it never accomplishes their goal because they don't have a plan and they don't know how to get there. And so having a good plan is paramount to getting goals and setting goals, achieving goals. As soon as you attain a goal, it's off to the next goal and so on and so forth. And that is what progress and evolution looks like. And so what is the cost of inaction? The cost is you. That's the answer. What is the cost of not doing something? The cost is your happiness. What is the cost of not taking your life into your control and actually not being on autopilot? It's your authenticity. What's the cost to everyone else? They never get to see the real you. They never get to, you never get to do the things that you wanted to do. And you know what? From personal experience, the one thing that I have gotten in the most in this last year that her and I have been together, and I have really have found a lot of self-love and all of that stuff, is that how much I want to give back and how much I want other people to grow and become their most truest and happiest version. And that's like what real love is all about. It's about like giving love and loving yourself and loving other people and loving everyone else and wanting good for other people. And imagine a world where that was the norm. Imagine that world. How different that world would look than it looks like right now. Anyways, 12 and a half minutes. Uh-oh. Talk to you later, everybody. Bye.